She is stuck between 6 vampire brothers, each of whom want to suck on her blood. When she seeks help from this prison, one of them sucks on her all night long. The story begins as a white-haired young girl, Yui, is traveling in a vehicle, her eyes pink as a rose flower. She's traveling on instructions by her father and arrives at the mystery mansion and meets her 6 brothers, Shuu, Reiji, Ayato, Kanato, Laito, and Subaru, who she never knew nothing about before. None of them await for her visit except for one, Shuu. He reveals something about a call he received yesterday, some guy instructing him to keep Yui safe. But things get terrifying as Yui realizes that her father has actually sent her to this mansion to become the 6 vampires' sacrificial bride. As expected, she attempts to flee, but ends up in a deserted room where she uncovers her father's journal, learning that she is adopted. The 6 brothers pursue her and start biting her on the neck. The scene cuts with Yui crying for assistance as the 6 brothers encircle her. Yui is starting her first day at a new high school, but she finds it unusual because it is at night. On their way to school, she notes that the brothers are all different and don't seem to get along. Later that day at school, Ayato pulls himself on Yui and sucks her blood until Reiji arrives and instructs him to take his actions to his private room. In some twisted show of affection, Ayato tosses Yui into the swimming pool and instructs her to praise him, but she is unable to swim and begs for assistance. Ayato, experiencing a flashback, jumps into the pool to rescue Yui. He kisses her underwater to awaken Yui and drinks her blood, but she pleads to stop. Later, Yui returns to the abandoned room to look for her father's journal, which this time is blank, leaving her confused. Yui dines with her brothers, then goes to her bedroom and finds Ayato waiting for her to feast on her blood. Later, she discovers that the brothers are not the same because they all have separate mothers. Shuu and Reiji have the same mother. Ayato, Kanato, and Laito are triplets from another mother, and Subaru has a different one as well. In an encounter with the other brother, Shuu, she grabs his hand, recalling an old memory. When Shuu notices him holding Yui's hand tightly, he brings her to the tub and desires to suck her blood to make her hate him so that she isn't too connected to him. Yui is surprised to see he is different than the rest, but he insists that he is still a vampire by nature. Later that night, Ayato attempts to take Yui's blood, but he is irritated to discover bite marks on her neck. He challenges Shuu to a game of darts with Yui as the reward. Shuu wins the game and is ready to depart when Laito pulls Yui towards him. Yui attempts yet again to call her father, but goes in vain as she is prevented by Kanato, who later decides to put her back on the school's roof as punishment for not giving him the accommodations that he had requested. As Yui proceeds to gather her stuff, she comes upon Laito, who seems to be reciting weird phrases to the moon. Laito captures her and begins sucking on Yui, discovering something unusual in her nectar. She attempted to phone her father, but again unsuccessful, collapsing onto Laito. Later, Yui inadvertently wakes up and goes to church to plead for aid, but she gets stuck with Laito. He starts to torment her for his amusement. He has her all to himself after all. So as night begins, Laito starts sucking Yui's blood and doesn't stop till the night is finished. Kanato encounters Yui in the rose garden, where she is attempting to sift out the new information concerning who betrayed her and offered her up as sacrifice to Laito. He invites her to accompany him so he can show her to the cemetery where his mother is buried. Yui tries to depart, assuming he wants some time alone, which enrages Kanato with misplaced anger. Yui walks around the house, still reeling from her ordeal, and gets concerned when she hears moans coming from Reiji's room. Much to her curiosity, she enters the room to check whether he needs assistance. Yui awakens Reiji, who then notices the stench of her blood. After that, he prepares tea for Yui, which he was provided with as part of his study of various plants and remedies. Yui drops and shatters the cup upon tasting it. Later, Reiji uses Yui as guinea pig to test his developing drug. She falls to the ground from the unpleasant taste and slashes her palm on the broken teacup. Reiji, irritated by her, gets intrigued by the fragrance of her blood once again. He instructs Yui to stand up at a distance, enticed by the fragrance of her blood. Then he forces himself on Yui and consumes her blood. Tasting her nectar, it just invites his approval of her to remain a bit longer. After finishing Yui's blood, Reiji gets a flashback of his late mother, Beatrix, before he murdered her. Yui refuses to believe that she should abruptly cease feeling sympathy for the brothers because they are vampires. Instead, she lets herself be brought to one of Kanato's favorite locations in his tiny world. As she looks at his family's collection of wax figurines, many dressed in wedding gowns, she becomes suspicious that things are not as innocent as they seem. Kanato verifies her assumptions and eagerly begins adding her to their collection before being interrupted by a summons. He later swallows Yui's blood before Ayato arrives and puts an end to the incident. She subsequently encounters Subaru, who advises her to flee while she still has the opportunity. Subaru then leaves and gives her his silver knife to defend herself, but she opts to remain to find a solution to her dilemma. Yui returns to her room, where Laito is waiting to drain her blood. Yui tries to protect herself, which just makes Laito more interested in her. The sound of the rain wakes Yui up, and she looks out her window to see a mystery lady in a purple outfit. Suddenly, she's taken over by an unseen power who carries her to a hidden tunnel and into a door that leads to the past. Once there, Yui witnesses the vampire boys when they were children. However, after learning the truth about their past, she returns to the tunnel. She is discovered by a worried Ayato, who warns her not to come down there, particularly during the rain. But then Laito appears, and the two of them start sucking Yui's blood. During this process, Ayato notices something unusual in her blood, wondering as to what it is. Yui questions the triplets about the lady in the purple dress she saw in the yard, and discovers the horrific truth of what happened to their mother, Cordelia. After learning how the triplets murdered their mother, Yui flees home in fear and falls into the garden. Subaru then approaches her, sucks her blood, and warns her to stay away from him. Yui has a restless night in the bedroom, made more so by the unexpected appearance of Ayato. She's taken aback when he crawls into her room and cuddles her to sleep. Yui has further chest issues and leaves the mansion in the dead of the night to search for answers, where she meets Shuu in an abandoned church. He's initially unhelpful, but rapidly gets interested in fulfilling her need for answers by forcefully tasting her blood to ensure that it has been altered in some way. As Yui questions why she was brought in as a sacrifice bride, he admits that anybody may become one, and she happened to be the easiest target for them. He then leads Yui to a hidden chamber where Cordelia wakes up and takes over her body. As the moon turns red, everyone feels the reawakening, particularly Ayato, who rushes to visit Yui's room only to discover her rosary on her bed. Cordelia and Richter, the vampire's uncle, enjoy each other's presence for the first time in eons since Richter extracted her heart when she died and implanted it in Yui. Ayato comes in and demands to know what they did to her. He then drags Cordelia away from the lake, causing Yui to regain the control of her body. Ayato rescues her and starts sucking her blood while telling her to be his and his alone. Kanato and Laito abruptly interrupt, causing Yui to fear and flee back to the mansion. Subaru warns her that she should have fled, then starts sucking her blood too. Later, Yui stands in front of Cordelia, expressionless, and she entirely takes over Yui's body. While Cordelia and Richter are catching up, Reiji arrives and Cordelia starts to tease him sensually. He subsequently rejects her, and the commotion draws Laito, Kanato, Subaru, and Shuu. As they talk about the predicament, she hands Richter a knife so he may dispose of all the lads for her. Much to Cordelia's disgust, Richter does not follow her command, as it is discovered that he has been using her to achieve his ambition of becoming head. Ayato appears and urges the two to stop fighting, claiming that Yui is his. While he and Richter fight to win Yui, Ayato gets stabbed. Yui regains control of her body at this point and calls Ayato. To rescue everyone, she stabs herself in the heart. Richter tries to steal Yui's heart, but is thwarted by Ayato. Cordelia takes over Yui's body again while Yui fades away. Subaru pulls out the silver knife from where Yui stabbed herself. Richter then makes his way to the attic where he has concealed Cordelia's garment, but Laito discovers him. Meanwhile, Shuu, Subaru, Kanato, and Ayato are keeping an eye on Yui as she awakens. Reiji creates a potion to kill Cordelia as quickly as possible while she is in Yui's body, but in order for the potion to be complete, he needs a part of Cordelia. Kanato tears Teddy apart to expose a jar holding Cordelia's ashes and completing the potion. Returning to the attic, Laito sets fire to the dress and Richter, killing him in the process. Ayato then consumes the potion before feeding it to Yui with a kiss and stating her real name. Yui then wakes up and discovers that all of the brothers have joined her. Following this entire event, each of the brothers speaking to Yui one by one. As the show resumes, we find Yui on the balcony holding a rose. Ayato approaches her and returns her necklace. The rose then drops, the petals fall off, and shackles confine Cordelia in the attic. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, drop us a like and consider subscribing for more.